Welcome to From the Couch Sports. I'm your host, Connor Bopp, and today I want to talk about a couple different big sporting events we had over the weekend. We had UFC 271 on Saturday night, and then today we just wrapped up the Super Bowl Sunday, concluding the 2021 NFL season, and it was pretty good football game. That's for sure. Kind of a lot of back and forth. There was a point where Bengals came out in the second half and they scored really quick, and then they got a pick and they kicked a field goal, and it looks like the Bengals were kind of taking the momentum of the game, and then the Rams kind of settled into it in the second half. In the first half, kind of towards the end, Odell he looked like he hurt his knee pretty bad. I'm not sure what exactly the injury was, but he wasn't able to play the rest of the game, and the Rams offense definitely struggled because of it. They didn't really have the firepower they did when Odell was on the field. He makes a big difference. And they were really stagnant for most of the game until they had the fourth quarter drive where basically Cooper Kupp just went beast mode. He single-handedly won the MVP of the game on that drive. I want to say he had 4 or 5 catches. Basically, he caught 2 touchdowns because one of them was taken back because of the double penalty. So he just had a phenomenal game. When it was all said and done, Cooper Kupp had 8 catches, 92 yards, and 2 touchdowns, bringing home the MVP. Matt Stafford, he had a big game too, 3 touchdowns, but he did throw 2 interceptions, both pretty tough picks. One of them was a bounce off the receiver's hands and into the corner, and then the other one was like a deep, just kind of like a Hail Mary shot at the end zone. It was picked off by Jesse Bates. But really good game all around. I think the Rams defense really dictated the game towards the end. You had Von Miller coming along, 2 sacks. Aaron Donald also had 2 sacks. Just really, so that defensive line in the first half, I believe they only had 1 sack, and then for them to come out in the second half and then just dominate the way they did, I believe the record for sacks in a Super Bowl was at least met, if not exceeded, by the Rams defense. So that's just crazy to see. And with all that being said, the Bengals were in position to win the Super Bowl on the final drive. They were driving, a kind of questionable call on third down, running the rock. You go for it on 4th and 1, and Aaron Donald just blows the play up once again like he's been doing all game. Joe Burrow just isn't able to get the ball off. This is after he kind of tweaked his knee on a couple drives before. You could tell he wasn't the same afterwards with his mobility. But besides that, the Rams defense was just playing at such a high level. It was kind of hard for him to be. But with that said, the Bengals have so much to continue to look forward to. You know, they got Joe Mixon. He's young. He had 15 attempts and 72 yards, so he had a pretty good game. And then T. Higgins, four receptions for 100 yards. Jamar Chase, 5 receptions for 89 yards. Jamar Chase just had an all-time historic rookie season, and T. Higgins just kind of fell under, like, unknown. And T. Higgins had a crazy good year as well. He had over 1,000 yards receiving, and they look to be a really good, nice tandem duo in the future. And, you know, this is just the first year for the Bengals to kind of put everything together. They do have a few free agents coming up, but I think ultimately with the amount of cap space they have, including the fact that they have all of their draft picks, they can go and attack this offseason and build on what they had. If they're able to put some more pieces on the offensive line, maybe add another tight end that can help in the blocking game, this offense is just going to go to that next level. Joe Burrow's going to be in his 3rd season, so he'll be even better. Chase, Higgins, those dudes are so young in their career that they're only going to get better. And then the defense, they're able to invest a few more pieces, add to that defense. They really have a lot to kind of look forward to. This, obviously, if you're a Bengals fan, it's a tough loss because you never want to see your team make it to the Super Bowl and lose. But most people didn't think that they were going to get to this point. Most people thought that they were going to lose when they played the Titans in the divisional round. Most people thought they were going to lose when they played the Chiefs in the AFC Championship. And, most people expected them to lose to the Rams, and they were in the game at the very end, down to the last drive. And that's commendable. It's crazy to see. This is an all-time historical kind of moment. A quarterback in his second year to turn a franchise around like this, it's just incredible to watch. So I'm really looking forward to continuing to watch this Bengals team and see what they do next year. They might be even better, and they just made a Super Bowl, but everything teams are going to go and attack this offseason. It's going to be very interesting to see how things play out coming into next season. But if you're a Bengals fan, you got a lot to look forward to. You have a superstar quarterback, a rookie wide receiver that just had an all-time season, and just all around tons to look forward to. Now, like if I were to give critique for the game, the holding on the linebacker and the Cooper Kupp play towards the end on that last drive, I think that was a little like for pretty much the whole game. I made a comment like, it doesn't look like they're calling any penalties. Like the only penalty I could even remember was the Vernon Hargreaves running on the field and celebrating with the interception. But like besides that, I couldn't think of any penalty. And then we got to that last Rams drive, and there was penalty after penalty, multiple penalties back to back to back, and just it was crazy. And that would be my only critique. I didn't think that was necessarily something you could call as a hold. But to be fair, at the same time, that T. Higgins play on Jalen Ramsey, he clearly yanked on his face mask. That should have probably been a penalty. But nonetheless, it was a incredible Super Bowl. That's pretty much it for the Super Bowl. Like, you got a lot of bright spots for the Bengals going forward. Now, if you look at the other side, the Rams, they might not. They got a lot of free agents. Odell might have just hurt his knee pretty bad, so we'll see if he's even healthy started the season next year, or if he's even on the Rams. I know Von Miller is a free agent. A rumor had it that Aaron Donald wants to retire potentially. I know he's pretty young. I think he's only 30. I even saw a rumor that like McVay might want to go into the booth and commentate instead of coach. They just won a Super Bowl, so I'm sure some of these things will settle here in the coming weeks. But on paper, the Rams, they went all in on this season, and they do still have pieces, but to go all in again next year, I think they're gonna have a harder time. They're probably gonna lose Whitworth, the left tackle. I think he's 40 years old, so I can't imagine him continuing to play. Eric Weddle, he came back just for the playoffs, so he's gone again. I know they had injuries at the safety too, which is why Weddle was playing. But nonetheless, they got a lot of free agents, and it doesn't look like they're going to bring everybody back. And that's kind of the story on most Super Bowl teams. The Bengals probably won't bring the entire team back either. But with the Bengals, you have a lot of cap space and all your draft picks too, so they're gonna only be able to build on this team that they have now. But that kind of sums up the Super Bowl. Outside of that, the Bengals defense played a hell of a game. They were able to completely shut the run game down. And Cooper Kupp is just he's on this crazy had this crazy magical season, like over 20 touchdowns. I'm pretty sure he set some crazy records. I know he led the league in receptions, yards, and touchdowns. And he just continued it through the whole season, all the way down to winning the Super Bowl. So that was an awesome season to see, just from a wide receiver standpoint. But yeah, that kind of wraps up the Super Bowl. I want to get into some of the UFC event that we just had on Saturday. UFC 271. This was a pretty fun fight card. It took place in Houston, and it was headlined by Israel Adesanya. I believe this is his 5th title defense, and he was fighting Robert Whittaker for the 2nd time. The first time they fought was in 2019, and Robert Whittaker was basically Izzy had the interim belt, which he had won from Kelvin Gastelum, and then Robert Whittaker was the champ who was on a layoff, so he was coming back to unify the belt. And Izzy knocked him out in the first fight. The first fight, Rob kind of, it seemed like he was trying to be more aggressive, and it led to some counter strikes from Izzy that resulted in him getting knocked out, and finished on the ground in the second round. But this was different. You could tell that both of these guys have improved. Whitaker went in there and he didn't bring it in as aggressive of a way, because he knew you got to be cautious when you're fighting Izzy. I know some people say that they think that Whitaker got robbed and it was a robbery. I think it was a really close fight. I think a few of the rounds Izzy won, but it's not like he completely dominated. There wasn't really any fight where, or any time in the fight where either of them looked like they were going to get hurt and knocked out or anything like that. It was just kind of this back and forth. Like Izzy, I feel like he really excels when someone's trying to come at him and take his head off because he has incredible counters. But in this fight, he wasn't getting all those opportunities, and he's destroying Rob's leg. But Rob was able to land a few big shots. He took him down a few times. That was another thing too. Izzy has pretty good takedown defense, so even when he did get taken down, he bounced up really quick. There was a point in the fight where Rob took his back, and it looked like he had a chance to submit him, but Izzy was able to kind of just slip out of it pretty nicely. So I don't disagree with the result of the decision. I think that Izzy won, the three rounds at least. I think Whitaker won the second round and the fifth, for sure. But even at that, the fifth I would say was his most dominant round. The second wouldn't say it was super dominant. I do think that he won, but it was close. And then kind of all the other rounds were 3 and 4. They were pretty close, but I would say Izzy probably won those ones, and then he won the first round. So I don't disagree with the decision. I do think that if you're going to take the belt from the current champion and you're in the fifth round of a very close fight, some of the grappling, Whitaker was shooting for a takedown with 30 seconds left. And it's like, dude, you're in position, if you could hurt Izzy right now, maybe you could sway the judges. I don't know. It's like if you're gonna take the champ out, you got to take him out. Unless you're gonna get a dominant, unless you're gonna just outright dominate them, you're probably not gonna win a close decision versus the champ. I mean, we've seen that in a lot of John Jones's fights, like the Reyes fight, for example. It was a very, very close fight. Most people had Reyes as the winner on the scorecard. Jones kind of finished strong towards the tail end of the fight. So it was just kind of one of those things if we're going based on the normal standard criteria for judging, then you can make a strong argument that Reyes won that fight. But a lot of people argue if you're going to beat the champ, you got to beat the champ. You got to knock him out or finish him or hurt him or completely dominate him. And in both of these fights, that didn't really happen necessarily. And obviously, I don't think Whitaker was as close to winning as Reyes was against Jones. But regardless, that was the main event. I know I've seen Michael Chandler tweeted out saying that he thinks Izzy's just kind of fighting the safe way to win. And I mean, I get that. He's not throwing caution to the wind and putting himself in compromising positions where he could get knocked out. And he's doing what he needs to do to get wins. And at the end of the day, a win is what matters. A win's what pays the bills. Izzy has had his spectacular knockouts. He's got a nice highlight reel. So it's not going to happen on every given night. And styles also make fights. I would venture to say he probably has a better chance to knock out Cannonier in his next fight, just based on the stylistic matchups. But we'll talk about Cannonier here in a second. I want to get to the Derek Lewis Tai Tuivasa fight. Was a ton of fun to watch. This is another one that's it's hard to see two fighters that you really like. Even the Izzy Whitaker fight for me is two fighters that you really like to watch. You're gonna have to watch one of them lose. And in the heavyweight instance, you have to watch one of them get knocked out, literally face planted into the ground. Tai Tuivasa just has some crazy elbows. And Tai Tuivasa is like one of the first dudes I've seen that's just like he ate a couple shots from Derek Lewis and just kept going. Like, you're probably gonna shut my lights out, but I'm willing to take so I can give. And sometimes in MMA that can be really rewarding. Tai Tuivasa just got the biggest win of his career. He's probably gonna jump into the top 5 in the rankings if you hold any weight into that. Derek Lewis was ranked 3. I mean, he was coming off an interim belt, and then he got the win over Dawkins. So I could totally see, Tai Tuivasa at least in the top 5. He might even take the 3 spot, although that would be crazy. But it can certainly happen. And then Derek Lewis probably gonna fall a little bit. But Derek Lewis is one of those guys like, he's still getting those knockouts. He's not always gonna win every single fight, but I still think he's gonna continue to get some nice knockouts. He's always gonna be fun to watch. He's one of the guys I don't think that he'll ever have the belt. It's possible, but he probably won't. But he's gonna make a ton of money. He's gonna continue to just shatter the knockout record in the UFC. And he very well he's a couple knockouts away from fighting for a belt again. And the guy has the power to shut anybody's lights out. So you never know. We did see like Glover Teixeira just won the belt last year. He's in his 40s. That's something that most people didn't expect. Like a few years ago. But the Derek Lewis Tai Tuivasa, very very fun fight. They both the first round was a lot more like clinch work. The guys kind of filling each other out, and then in the second round they got ready to swing and bang like they said before the fight, and that's what happened. It looked for a second like Tuivasa was gonna get knocked out. Derek Lewis was coming forward, and then Tuivasa landed a couple like really nice elbows, and he was able to get the finish that way. So that was really fun to see. And then the one thing that I didn't really like though is like I didn't even see him do the shoey on the camera. I don't know what they were doing. And then it looked like the security just kind of pushed him back all the way. And it's like I get it. That shit is super nasty. I definitely wouldn't do it myself. But it's fun to watch. It's like this dude's signature celebration. Like if Derek Lewis would have got the knockout, are you guys gonna tell him not to do his celebration? Like, come on. That was sort of his thing, and they just kind of cut past it. But regardless, we'll move on. I want to talk about the Cannonier Brunson fight. This is basically a title eliminator. So they're gonna fight. The winner was gonna fight Izzy next, Izzy or Rob, depending on who won. But obviously Izzy did. So this fight was pretty fun to watch. I thought that Brunson was just gonna continue to take him down and win the fight that way, and it looks like for a while that was what's gonna happen. He did it in the first round. He's just relentless, just continues to go for the takedowns, and then the takedowns open up a lot of nice shots too. So even if he doesn't have the best, striking, he tends to land a lot of big punches, and he's able to strike with a lot of good strikers because he's got the danger of the takedown. So he started the second round off with a takedown, and then he got back up on his feet. In the second round, he wasn't the same. I have to watch it again to see like what specifically hurt him, but there was something that hurt him like right after they got up off the ground, and he was just not the same the rest of the fight. He looked like he was kind of out on his feet, and then Brunson just started landing bombs. Continued to, he dropped him, and then he was landing elbows on him and everything. The corner was gonna literally threw in the towel pretty much at the same time as the ref stopping the fight. He was just getting smashed on the ground. Crazy fight. Two completely different stylistic matchups, and it was just gonna come down to whose style's better. And Brunson's just got some crazy power for this weight class. To see like some of his other fights at middleweight, like the Whitaker fight or the Gastelum fight, and for him like to not have gotten knockouts in those. I believe they were both 5-round fights. That's crazy because he's got some crazy power, and he's most likely gonna fight Izzy next. And I think the story's always gonna be like with Izzy. It's always like, and I feel like they do this with dominant champions. We hear it with Kamaru, heard it with Khabib. It's like this next guy's like possessing. He's the most dangerous guy. It was like Dustin Poirier is the most dangerous guy Khabib's fought. Then it was Gaethje, and he just beats both of them. And for Kamaru, it's Colby, and then it's Gilbert Burns because Gilbert Burns got the jiu-jitsu that Kamaru's not used to, and then Kamaru beats him again, and then it's Colby again, and some people said, oh, Masvidal's got this crazy power. If he lands, he's a better stand-up boxer, and they just continue to do this. We'll see the narrative again when Leon Edwards fights Usman most likely. And with Izzy, it's this next guy's got a better chance of landing that big shot and knocking Izzy out. So before it was like Whitaker, is Izzy going to be able to beat Whitaker? He goes in, dominates him. Then it was, well, Paulo Costa is going to come forward. He's super strong, durable, and he's got crazy dynamite hands. He's got knockout power. He's undefeated. And then Izzy just made light work out of him, dominated the fight. And then, he's dominant decision wins over Vittori. And then the close win over Whitaker. I think they're basically the two are the top in the division. But now we're going to have this next narrative because Cannonier does have the power. And if he does land, he probably could knock Izzy out. But then it's like landing is a lot harder than it is on paper. Like Izzy is one of the hardest guys to hit clean, and you're when you get into the position to try to land those bombs, Izzy's countering, and he might not have the power that Cannonier has, but he's got the speed and precision that he can easily knock these dudes out too. And then he's just such a great stand-up fighter. I don't see the fight with them two going to the ground or anything like that. And like, if you just look at like, obviously styles make fights, and just because one guy beat another guy doesn't mean anything. But if you watch the Whitaker Cannonier fight, Whitaker dominated him on the feet, and like Izzy has the edge on Whitaker on the feet. So if you're looking at this fight just like being objectively, like Izzy's gonna have a pretty good advantage on the feet against Cannonier. Cannonier doesn't have that like danger on the ground either that like people were saying, like if Rob can get him down, if Marvin can get him down, they can replicate Yan's kind of game plan against Izzy. And most of these dudes haven't been able to do it thus far, and definitely Cannonier doesn't seem like he's the guy to do that. He's gonna go in there and try to knock Izzy out most likely. But that kind of covers that fight. And then I just want to touch on a couple other kind of fun fights that I saw. I watched pretty much all the fights on the card. The Bobby Green fight was crazy fun to watch. This dude Bobby Green he's electric. He is he's gonna have a big fan base soon if he's already not like close to that. I realize he hasn't had like any top 15, like any big fights, and he's not like fighting at the top of pay-per-views. He's not like a top 5 guy or anything at the moment, but he's a ton of fun to watch. The energy, the showman, like the way that he performs in there, he's talking trash, and he's just fun, man. He's fun to watch, and he's super quick. He's got a really fun style to watch. And like the fight that he had against Rafael Fiziev, super close fight, and that was a ton of fun. Both unique striking styles, and Bobby Green's just he's a lot of fun to watch. I'm really interested to see kind of who he's fighting next and whatnot, because that was a really fun fight for me. And then Andrei Arlovsky, he got another win too. He's like an ageless wonder. It's crazy. He's in his 40s. I believe he had the belt in 05 or 06 in the UFC, the heavyweight belt. So it has been like more than 15 years for sure, and he's still getting like nice wins. It's not like they just throw him against other 40-year-olds. He's getting like young guys that are, trying to climb their way through the ranks, and he's winning for he's winning most of them. He's on a nice win streak. Um, he's probably gonna go against someone big next, or I mean someone bigger. Um, but we'll see how that goes. Arlovsky's always fun to watch. He's just a crazy veteran of the game. I'm curious how much longer he wants to fight because he's still fighting at a pretty high level, and sometimes these heavyweights are able to do that. The thing that's crazy about Arlovsky is he has been doing it for so long. A lot of other times, like these, heavyweights kind of coming older in their career, they might not have been like performing for 20 plus years or fighting for 20 plus years. So it's just crazy to see that he's still performing the way that he does. And then a couple other ones like the Roxanne Modafferi's last fight against Casey O'Neill. Casey O'Neill won the fight, but Roxanne, this was her retirement fight, and she really went out there and she did a good job. Like she fought for the full 15 minutes, going for the win. You could tell it was her last fight. She gave it her all, and it was a close fight. In my opinion, I think it was for sure O'Neill won, but one of the judges called it for Roxanne, so it was considered a split decision. But you usually you want to go out on a win, but for Roxanne, she goes out, she fights one of the top young contenders in the division, and she gives it everything she got, and she didn't get knocked out or anything like that. It wasn't like a sad moment or anything. It was like, you can tell she can still fight. She's been fighting the best in her division for years. And she's a pioneer for the women's for women's MMA. So, obviously it was cool to watch that. She was on like the lower. She was on the prelims, but it was still fun. That was a fight I tuned in to watch. And then let's see here. Kyler Phillips had a really nice fight too. He had the tough loss to Paiva. I think it was sometime like early last year, I want to say, and so he came back and he looked really good. He got the finish in the third round, I believe, and yeah, he looked really good tonight. So I'm curious to see kind of where he goes from this. And then the other one I want to talk about is this teammate of Izzy's named Blood Diamond. I don't even know his real name. He literally goes by Blood Diamond, kind of like the Korean Zombie. Like when the UFC announces his name, they say the Blood Diamond. And this is a guy like before he fights. He only had 3 MMA fights in his career, but they're like he's literally fought over 100 kickboxing matches. I want to say they even like asked him in an interview like, do you know how many kickboxing matches you've had? And he's like, no, I lost count. So they really hyped this dude up. This dude's been training with Izzy for all these years and whatnot. And then he goes in and the dude decides to run. He fought Jeremiah Wells. And Wells literally like runs around the ring randomly. And like almost hurts his ankle and like stumbles. And then Blood Diamond kind of runs in, tries to hit him, misses. And then they're in the clinch. And then Wells takes him down and finishes the fight. And Blood Diamond wasn't able to get back up. I definitely want to see like what, obviously if he's this good of a kickboxer, he's probably going to have some crazy MMA wins eventually. It's just 3 fights and then you're fighting like top dudes in the UFC. Like they don't really like let you build up and, fight guys that aren't like elite. If you're a really good kickboxer that's never grappled much, you're gonna face someone that has more experience grappling, like pretty early in your UFC career. So, I'm still curious to see like what this guy looks like when he gets to stand up more in a fight. Because obviously that style that they say he has and everything is it's really fun to watch. But with only 3 MMA fights, we'll see kind of like if they book him again in the UFC or if they're gonna try to like have him go somewhere else. I know the standard with the UFC is usually 3 fight deals. And this is a guy that like trains with Izzy and stuff, so maybe he'll get a few more fights before they like let him go or anything. But I'd like to see him fight someone that's more of a someone that's more of like a stand-up fighter. Even though Jeremiah Wells has lots of knockouts on his record, I think that he knew like the easiest way for me to win is this. I don't want to mess around too much if this guy's this good on the feet. And then kind of just want to give my input on like who I think these guys should fight next. Obviously we've talked. Izzy's gonna fight Cannonier. I think a fun fight for Rob would be Marvin Vettori. That would give if Marvin wins that, he's got to win over Paulo. He's got to win over Rob. He's right back in the title content. Like he could probably get a title shot after that. If Rob wins that, depending on how long they make him wait again, like he could be right in the picture again. Especially if because Vittori's already up there. If Izzy beats Cannonier, Rob beats Marvin, it's like who else do you book over those guys? I know you got like Strickland kind of waiting back there. In my opinion, I think Strickland should get like another top fight. Like if he beat Paulo Costa or something like that, then yeah, I could totally agree that he should get a title fight. I don't think he should get a title fight over Jack, like just because he beat Jack Hermanson. Like I don't think that's enough for a title shot. But outside of that, I think Brunson's talked about like he only wanted 2 more fights, so basically this next fight will be like his retirement fight. I'm not 100% sure who the best guy for him to fight is. I want them to give him like a good matchup, not someone who's just gonna finish him. And I don't know. I mean Brunson's also really good. Like he was just on this big fight win streak. He just beat Darren Till last year. So we'll see what they do with Brunson. As far as like Derek Lewis, I think a fun matchup would be Jairzinho. I'm sorry if I messed that up. Rosenstrike. I think that would be a fun matchup. I could see both of those dudes. That kind of another good chance of a knockout between both of the guys. And then for Tuivasa, I think a fun fight, depending on how these guys do in their next fights, because I think they're both booked. Either Chris Daukaus or Tom Aspinall. If either one of those guys get wins, they'll both be kind of in that similar, either fringe top 5 or they'll be top 5. And then Tai Tuivasa versus one of those guys, that could kind of create an opportunity to fight for a belt. Could be like a number 1 contender type thing. The other thing too is like this heavyweight division. Who knows how this is gonna go? We right now we still have the whole Francis Ngannou contract situation. So how's that gonna go? He is injured, so he's not gonna be able to fight for a while, even if they do work out the contract. So do they do an interim belt in the time being, or is Francis? Do they not work things out with Francis, and do they just have another fight for heavyweight? The rumor right now is like the John Jones Stipe could be for the interim belt. I think that makes a lot of sense. Stipe for sure doesn't get the love like that he should get for being considered the greatest heavyweight of all time whenever they do show him love. This is a guy who, he's paid his dues. He beat Francis Ngannou, and they just didn't even think about having him get the rematch immediately when he's the reigning champ. So I do think Stipe should get another shot in there, and then obviously Jones, like depending on like the situation with Francis, maybe one of those guys fights Francis instead. But I do think those kind of are the 3 probably at the top. And then obviously Ciryl Gane, like he lost a close decision to Francis, so Ciryl is up there too. And who does he fight next? He could be talking about fighting one of these guys too. So, I think there's some kind of young life in the heavyweight division, so it's gonna be fun to watch. Ideally, I still think like those guys are like Francis and Ciryl are probably the 2 best. We'll see kind of how good John Jones is. Like if John Jones is as good as he was at light heavyweight, he could be one of the best at heavyweight too. So we'll see that. And then obviously Stipe's, he's an all-time great, so he's still up there too. But outside of that, there's a lot of young up and comers in the heavyweight division. When typically it's been one of the weaker divisions outside of the top. So we'll see how things go forward with that. But thanks for tuning in. As always, like and subscribe if you like the content. Let me know what your take is on some of the things we discussed. And thanks for tuning in. Have a good one.